Okay, so today I'm with Bennett, the Antiprenuer. So let's talk about the word entrepreneur. So the podcast is about challenging the status quo within digital entrepreneurship and destroying. Let me see if I have this correctly. You have blueprints and magic bullets, and silver bullets and magic pills, right? So I understand magic pills and silver bullets, but I was a bit kind of interested in the blueprints. What do you have against blueprints?
Nothing and everything. So nothing is, I understand you could build a house from a blueprint. I understand that a really passionate entrepreneur could put out a blueprint of the things you need to, say, launch a podcast, and it can have all the great information like a microphone and hosting and someone to edit or whatever. But what I'm kind of against is the, do these 10 things on my blueprint checklist and you too can have a Lamborghini, you know what I mean? Or like get rich quick because I have a blueprint for this thing. And a lot of the things that I believe in life have a duality to them. So I feel like it's good and bad. It just depends on kind of how you use it. So magic pills, silver bullets, blueprints are all in that world of like, get rich quick, or you don't have to work that hard to really have a business that's successful. Just do these things. And I often joke about coaches who coach coaches on how to coach coaches. Once it gets that meta, it's kind of like something that I think we should throw out the window. Yeah.
Remember.
Next, sorry.
So we're experimenting for this episode to say the guest will say next instead of me asking the question. We'll just see how it works. Okay, so tell me about the opposite extreme. Do you think some people go the opposite extreme where they emphasize the hardship too much?
Could you clarify that a little bit more? Make sure I know what you mean.
I guess okay. So your problem with the first extreme is that it's not as easy as as you put it. Do you have a problem with some people who make it sound too hard or too difficult?
Oh, okay. To be honest, I haven't thought about that too much. Trying to think real quick if I've ran across that. I like to keep things real in the work that I do. So I often say things like, because I help entrepreneurs learn to look and sound great on camera, I say this learning curve is simple but not easy. The things I'm going to teach you are simple. Putting gear together and recording yourself is simple, but it's not easy. It's a learning curve. You have to be committed to consistency and all those sorts of things. So I'd probably have to say I haven't run across too many people I feel like are making it too complicated, but a lot of people are not explaining just one layer deeper how hard or easy the thing is. They often just say things like, hey, add more value. And it's like, okay, that's great. How do you add more value? Tell me how you add value, and I can relate that to my life and maybe find a version that works for me. Tell me how to add value in a certain context. Like if you have a podcast, make sure to give your guests some space at the end to share their social media. Give me something to show me how hard or easy it is. So I don't know if that answers the question, but that's kind of how I feel about the things being made to be too complex. I guess every once in a while from a distance, not personally, I see that people are like, there's only one way to do this and you need my wisdom and knowledge to get there. And there's no other way that you can figure that thing out. So maybe things are overcomplicated that way sometimes. What's next?
Okay. So next is actually, this is not really sponsorship, but I'm gonna see this here.
Yep.
What do you think that is?
I see a light and the bars. It makes me think of like a heater.
Okay, correct. This is how is it turned on? How do you use it?
It looks electrical, just based on the glow. It looks very confined. So I would say plugged in.
It's actually there's a gas tank behind it. So
okay.
Then this is very usual in Jordan. So how do you think people die from this?
Tips over and catches something on fire.
I mean, I didn't see stories about this, but what's common is that people sleep and the gas leaks and they die in their while they're suffocating.
Gotcha. Like carbon monoxide.
Right. Yeah. Where do you think I am now?
Almost feels like office/workspace. It also feels like the outer room of a home or a standalone building like a shed or garage or something like that.
Very good. Very good. It's actually all of the above. It's my office, but it's my home. So behind this is my room, my sleeping room. But it's kind of like an extension and like a balcony. So it's an extension of an outer room. So
nice.
Okay. So tell me your earliest memory.
This one's fun because people don't generally believe me. I have 3 or 4 flashes from my first birthday, and it isn't like adult context. I remember grandma said this to me. It's flashes, very visual. I got this little plastic race car that you sit on. So it's got a steering wheel, plastic wheels, and the top of the race car is bumpy, and that's the seat. So you literally sit on top of the car and push it with your feet. And there was a number 1 on the hood. It was like kind of a mock-up of an Indy race car. I remember my cake sitting on a picnic table. And I remember family around. I just don't see faces of family. I see the cake. And I remember that my grandmother gave me an envelope that had one of every currency in it. And I didn't see it as currency. I saw it as something to touch and play with. I remember that. So there was a nickel, dime, quarter, $50 piece, $1 bill, $5 bill, $10 bill, 20, and 100, and all those things. There's like one of everything since I was turning 1. And I remember those flashes. I talked about this memory when I was 5 and 6. I talked about it when I was a teenager. I've talked about it in my 20s. It's always just kind of stuck with me.
Do you have good memory in general?
Yeah. Long term. Long term. Short term's not bad. I just don't rely on it.
Okay.
Next.
So what's something that you find easy, but most people find difficult, and the reverse, something that you find difficult, but most people find easy?
Yeah. So I'm an introvert, but I find through my extroverted type tendencies, being in a band that toured all over and played music, giving speeches on stages all over the place, being on camera, creating content, interviewing people, I find unlocking other people, making them feel comfortable, want to share with me, want to open up, want to trust me very quickly compared to how fast they might trust other people. Soft skills, very, very easy. And many people struggle with that side of things. Quite the opposite. Even though I have an engineering background from way back, I hated it. I never really loved the work, even though I was good at it. I find systems and processes, spreadsheets, databases as terrible, gross. I hate it. The interesting part there is once it's built, I just got, off a call yesterday with my technical assistant who loves building these things. And I said, once they're built, I love honing them, using them, tweaking them, making sure that we're getting the best out of them. But going from scratch to there being a system built or a database built, I'm out. It makes me feel horrible. So soft skills come naturally, and the more technical hard skills in business, I hate.
Right.
What's next?
I'm glad that you mentioned introvert versus extrovert, because one of the things that I'm thinking of is the personality assessments. What's your experience with personality assessments? Do you find them interesting? Do you take them a lot? What tell me about that?
Oh man, so this is a good one, right? My sales coach is a very big proponent of the DISC assessment, And even though I work with him directly, I have still not taken it because I didn't want it to influence our early work. That being said, I've taken like 16 personalities and a couple other things. And to me, just a feeling, this isn't based on data or anything like that. To me, just the feeling is it's kind of like a horoscope. If you say general enough things about the answers you gave, someone's going to be like, oh, yeah, that's me. But as you probably recognized earlier, magic pills, silver bullets, I want to dig in one layer deeper. Don't just give me the surface level. And I feel like those are kind of surface level sometimes, because in the real world, when I tell people I'm an introvert, they're like, whoa, I always thought you were extroverted. And I'm like, I understand that because of what I do, but what you don't know is where I draw my energy. And it's from very introverted things, not me being on camera or me speaking on a stage. It's what happens after, the relationships, the soft skill stuff. So yeah, I guess that kind of answers the question a little bit.
Right.
Yeah. What's that?
I find this very interesting because I was writing the story behind the podcast, and one of the kind of elements of the story is that this idea of my introvert or an extrovert. And I personally, I would classify myself as an ambivert now, but lots of people are shocked by what they discover about me. So either they have seen me as, kind of reserved at the beginning, and then over time it's like, oh my goodness, you flipped to the other pendulum, or I start very kind of asking, kind of when I connect with people, I do this kind of ask strange questions and interact, and I'm goofy and all of that stuff. So they think of me as an extreme extrovert, but I'm not. So tell me more, speaking of kind of misconceptions that people have, what other misconceptions people have about you other than the extrovert introvert thing?
So I have to assume some of these things because as humans, we don't always tell each other the truth and what we're actually thinking. I'm not perfect by any means, but I do that a lot more than a lot of people I know because of the work I do. I need people to trust me to get the best out of them. So some of these are just things I assume, not because I've been told. The whole, jeans, t-shirt, boots, bald head, beard thing. A lot of people seem to be kind of struck by like, wow, you're really calming. When I work with you, it makes me feel comfortable and trust you. We tackle, what for a lot of people is terrifying, being on camera, sharing their story, making video content. We tackle things that can seem really big and scary, and you help them seem not so scary. But if I'm just out shopping or whatever, people move out of my way. So I can only assume the kind of maybe like rock and roll or biker look could make people feel a little off put. And then they seem surprised when they work with me or see a piece of my content and they're like, oh, wow, that's not what I thought at all from your profile picture.
I mean, I would raise my hand and say, yeah, that was my experience with you. It's like, that's the mental image that I had. And I'm like, oh, he is super nice. He is super gentle. It's like, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, I can confirm this hypothesis.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I do, because it's always good to actually hear a human say something, right? As opposed to assuming. And I've got some people I'm closer to now who, out of the best of intentions have been like, man, all the darks and grays and that skull on your t-shirt and stuff, man, you need to change that. And I'm like, no, I don't actually, because I'm not trying to fit into a thing. I'm trying to be the Antiprenuer. And those are the clothes that I just wear. I didn't put them on for that photo. It's what I had on that day when the photographer showed up, because I have some shirts with skulls on them. I also have just a lot of like black and gray with nothing on it because that's kind of my style. So like this,
right.
Simplistic, comfortable. And it just so happens that I look a little rock and roll. Right. Yeah, it's kind of fun. Next.
Okay, so let's talk about storytelling for the moment. Do you prefer to tell your own story or to tell the stories of others?
This is shifting. What a great question. It's shifting to where now the Antiprenuer, which is just my moniker, it's because Dan Bennett, the name, is some 80s juggling magician guy, and he owns the first 10 pages of Google. And I ran with the Antiprenuer a long time ago because it's just easy to find me. Yeah, I lost my train of thought. Can you restate it?
Sure. Do you find it easier? Do you prefer to tell your own story or to tell the
Ah,
stories of others?
I appreciate that. So yeah, it's shifting to more of where I'm like coming into the Antiprenuer being the umbrella. It's how you find me. I'm the host of my podcast. I have my YouTube channel, my newsletter. It's Dan. It's the face of me. It's the Antiprenuer. And then the work that I do, my company is just a vertical underneath that 1 Minute Media. This is the work I do for other people. So it used to be like I didn't mind being on camera or being the front of a band or speaking at conferences, but it was never like it's about me. It's about me. That's naturally happened over time where people relate to me. They love the Antiprenuer kind of vibe of like, yeah, I can push back against the status quo myself. I can share my story because I'm different than other people and be proud of that. But as business has grown, more and more people say, I work with your company because of you or your thoughts on community. As you're building a community, I'm in that community. Part of the reason I chose to be in there was because of how you built it and your stamp that you kind of put on it. So I'm kind of transitioning more into it's easier to tell my story. Not that it's less easy to tell other people's because I've been doing that forever, but it's easier to tell mine. If I take my career as a whole, it's definitely been easier to tell other people's up until like the last year, where I'm like, okay, how do I help hundreds of entrepreneurs and scale this thing? It's to tell my own story so people know why they're working with me. So it's becoming more comfortable over time. Next.
Okay. What I guess before I ask the question, I tell you something that I'm struggling with in terms of storytelling, and I see if you have something similar. So I consider myself both as a researcher and a storyteller, and I think that there's a conflict between them because the researcher wants to give the picture in a kind of in a very the truth of it without embellishment or without I just want to give you the accuracy, all of that stuff. And then in terms of a story, you need to kind of pick the more sensational parts, the more interesting parts. And I've noticed myself that I put aside direct lying, but I can present different stories about myself, and some of them or pick elements that the picture could be a bit misleading. So I struggled with that, and I think the researcher is stronger. Like I'm more like at the end of the day, I want the truth of the story. So number one, do you experience that? And number two, are there any two Dans clashing against each other within you?
So struggling with it as a thought, I've struggled with it slightly, but in application, I don't. And I'm a transparent dude. I share everything I know and everything I am, and I'm always open to like critique and criticism and just trying to be as vulnerable as possible. My big crutch is metaphor. It's how I learn. It's how I teach. I don't try and learn new ways of teaching. And if it isn't even close to metaphor, I don't learn from it very well. So I dismiss it often. So that's a huge crutch for me, but it's worked so well for me. I think it's going to get me through the rest of my life as well. So the way that I'm able to sensationalize and embellish and all those things without even being close to lying is taking the real world thing and attaching it to a metaphor that is colorful and beautiful and drives home some big point, but I'm not changing my real life story. I'm just using a reference to put it in someone's mind. So one of them is I always want to go one layer deeper, but we don't have to get to the core. I talk about this all the time. So someone says, oh, you want to develop some leads for your business? Find a group full of your ideal avatar, go in there and provide value, and people will want to get to know you and maybe want your stuff. And I'm like, okay, what does provide value mean? And then I never get to ask these people because they're always just some guru on some podcast somewhere. But like, I want one layer deeper. So I think of it like an onion, just peel back a couple pieces of skin. We don't have to get to the core, but just a couple. I just want to get a little bit deeper. And then just sharing that visual when I'm talking about digging a little deeper without feeling like we have to get to the core. People get this feeling of like, whoa, yeah, I can see that. And I didn't have to sensationalize real life at all. Because in real life, the data is learn something, ask a couple good questions. Now I know more and I feel better about my decision, you know? So I don't struggle with it personally too much because I rely on metaphors so much. Two Dans that conflict. Oh, this is one I've never been asked. So I'm going to kind of think on the fly here. So much of Dan now that's different than Dan of 5 years ago has been like a metamorphosis. It's slow and I can feel it happen, but it's not like boom, one day I was different or two things conflict because I have a new viewpoint. I think there's a knowledge and acceptance of information and data. So someone else doing the research, like you've said, and they present that research to you and you know it's true. You've seen it exercised 100,000 times. You've seen other entrepreneurs do it successfully. You know it's a blueprint you can actually trust, let's say. I know some of those things. And then like heartfelt storytelling, empathetic Dan comes up against that information. And it's like, oh man, what do I do here? So example, I have a landing page right now. I'm working with a couple different people as well as the broader public to look at it, pick it apart, help me make it better. And one thing that comes up all the time is someone needs a tangible pain point. You need to be able to say, hey, if I help you learn how to make video for your company, you're going to get 15% more revenue this year. I can't give that data without feeling like I can't promise that. Like, But I know that the information I'm getting about putting a pain point with a return in someone's mind before they make a purchase decision is accurate. So like, want to do a good job, Dan, and accept that data and poke at that pain point, even though I'm not sure it's 100% true, Dan, conflict quite often. And that's, in my world, the difference between in real life. So referrals, word of mouth, I'm on someone else's podcast, their audience kind of trusts me a little bit already, so they're willing to talk to me. And then the digital, you just saw my YouTube video, you heard my podcast, you don't know me, you're getting to know me. Those two things kind of conflict sometimes, and I'm always trying to balance those two out. And next,
that's this is something I need to work on, because sometimes I have a note related to the question. So in terms of optimizing this podcast, I'll be thinking about that. But yeah, numbers, I find them difficult part of storytelling, because like, let's say everybody like in CVs, the recommendation is give numbers in so that to prove your what you've done and all of that stuff. And one of the biggest things I find challenging is that it doesn't feel not authentic. Just I think I can be giving a misleading. The numbers are true, but can be a misleading figure, or it gives a different picture than what actually happened. So that's what I. Yeah, thank you for bringing this up.
Can I take that further? Is that okay?
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I 100% agree with you. It's not that it's wrong or bad, it just doesn't fit your style, my style, right? I agree with you in that. So if I'm on a real life call with someone and I can say, hey, I can't promise you your videos are going to go viral, but what I can promise you is your current audience is going to relate to you way better because we're effectively storytelling through video. And your chances of growing that audience with new people is going to be even better, because when they first meet you through your videos, they're going to feel attracted to you. They're going to feel like they trust and know you. And then when you talk to them in real life, you can cement that because we know you're a good person. I can have that conversation in real life and feel really, really good about it. And let them know there's going to be growth, guaranteed, just because you're doing a better job. But as soon as I put that in like a hero section of a website, it feels gross to me because I can't promise you anything before I know you a little bit. Yeah. Thanks for letting me chime in there.
Yeah. Tell me about a ridiculously honest marketing ad you saw, or someone who's ridiculously honest in your life.
Say that again. I'm sorry.
Ridiculously honest, either person or marketing campaign.
That I've seen.
Yeah.
You know, one that like seems subtle, but I consider ridiculously honest is Pat Flynn, the SPI company, Smart
Right.
Passive Income. I followed his stuff for a long time, and it's always been funny because as I've spoken out as someone who's against like the whole guru get rich quick kind of thing, which a lot of the internet sensationalizes, he's always been my like, I'll give you a pass. You know, now they put out their summit that has to do with community building for free, ridiculously valuable. I can't believe it didn't cost money. Some other serendipitous things happened. I built my community on the Circle platform, and I was in the Circle community, and SPI's community manager came in and presented, and I was like, yep, they walk the walk. I'm going to go ahead and join their community now, because I've been thinking about it for like a year. I go in there, sure enough, it's full of incredible people doing incredible things. They don't charge enough. I can't believe what I'm getting for my money. Like, it's been incredible. Then I'm on Pat's podcast. Then I have Jillian, the community manager, on my podcast. I'm making these incredible connections. I'm getting to know these people personally even more. And they do lead with heart. They do incredible work. They filter who can be in the group based on it never becoming a toxic environment. You need to come here and learn. Some entrepreneurship's tough. People will hold your feet to the fire, but it's all in this kind of like heart first type of way, which I relate to so much. That's ridiculously honest. This guy is always externally, even if you're not in the group, saying, we don't put up with BS around here. We have, you know, a diverse and inclusive community that's important to us. The content we put out is purposeful, and it's not for everyone. Like, I just love, not that it just aligns with me, but it's so ridiculously honest, because that guy could, I guarantee, and if you asked him, I bet he would say yes, could probably have 5 to 10 times whatever wealth he has right now if he went at it a different way and it was just all about revenue. I guarantee it. So like, that's one example that comes to mind when I think about ridiculous honesty.
I think I'm gonna join now. Like, I'm gonna check. I already know of them. I was reading, looking into different podcast courses, and one of the options was his. But you really kind of like gave me a push to kind of like really dig into him and join like communities that he's in. So yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Okay, again on storytelling. Tell me, some memorable stories that you encountered.
Like things that have happened in real life.
Either that or clients or whatever you feel like sharing.
Man, there's so many. Oh, let me see. Yeah, so an alumni member of 1 Minute Media, not a paying member, but still helps out, helps other people, chimes in, gives me testimonials sometimes, that sort of thing. Her name is Dawn. She worked for a large vehicle manufacturer here in the States, and was looking to make a move, but didn't want to be in automotive anymore. She was management just under the executive level. Started working for a company that was a tier 1 supplier of automotive. So she didn't get to leave the industry, but she went to a different position that she wanted more, did really well for them, ended up being fired. And at the end, her final write-up was even changed by the CEO of the company to reflect how he actually felt about her time there, because he didn't feel the write-up was fair. And she was never told why she was let go. It was this like, you're out of here. And her boss, who is not the CEO, was the one who made the decision. And the CEO saw it and said, your permanent record is not going to be reflected this way. I'm changing it. So she was still let go, but she was let go with dignity. And later on, she started working with Manoj, who's the founder of 5 Hour Energy. So billionaire guy doing all kinds of things that aren't just energy drinks. And he kind of headhunted her and brought her in because he was trying to take medical equipment that already existed in the world, but not in the United States, and bring it in from other countries and see if he could find a space for it here. So she was handling a lot of that stuff. And he told her, like, I've ruined you for corporate. Like, you're going to be an entrepreneur once you're done working with me, because you're going to see. And sure enough, her time there was limited, and they both knew that. And when it came to an end, she's like, you're right, I got to do my own thing. I can't go back to what I did before. So she launched her own company. She coaches executives who are either making a move upward or making a lateral move to another company in the same position, on how to, conjure up team, learn the new culture, whatever the case may be. They're in transition of some sort. So when we started working together, we were talking about the story spine, which is used by like Disney and Pixar and stuff like that. It's once upon a time, until one day everything changed, and because of that, until one day, and ever since. It's just that Toy Story, right? It's just that natural kind of story spine. And she was talking about how much it impacted her when she ran across it. And I was like, let's be literal. Let's say, once upon a time, I was fired from a job. And I've never talked about being fired because now I'm a coach. And who wants to hire a coach that's been fired from an executive job when she coaches executives? And let's be vulnerable about it, lead with conflict, show the dirt under the rug. So we did a 7-part video series with each one of those steps from the story spine, and she released it. It's done incredibly well. It's impacted people. It's brought new clients. It's built trust with her before people even meet her. And I just love that we took something so literal in the fictional side of storytelling, applied it to real life. And then, of course, humans related to her because they're used to stories. And that's how we learn. So it's one of my favorite stories of just keeping it simple. Let storytelling do its thing. I always say I love story because I didn't invent it, so I don't have to defend it. It works. That's it. So that's one of my favorites. And like I said, I have tons, but I love that one.
I love that. So Dawn, Dawn. I'm gonna check her out. And that story is on your website, is it?
No, it should be. She's working on a testimonial for me right now that will be on the 1 Minute Media page, where people can link out and watch that story spine of hers. But I can definitely connect you. And
yeah, and once you do that, just send me the story, because I'm just really intrigued to kind of like check it out.
Yeah, it's a fun one. And she had to be brave to do it because she had never talked about it. She's like, I don't share this because I'm kind of ashamed of it, even though I don't even know why I got fired and they never told me. I've always been afraid people wouldn't hire me if they heard that. And now people hire her because she's shared that. And it's crazy to think about. But yeah, it's fun.
Right. How about, have you encountered someone, like let's say LinkedIn profile or somebody, and was like, man, this guy really needs video. Like this guy, I think the missing element in him or gal is he needs video.
Yeah. I'll give a disclaimer. I don't think video's for everyone. I don't think all companies should use it. And I don't think everyone should be the face of their own company at all.
Right.
That being said, it's generally through networking. So it's not necessarily profiles I come across, but it's networking, which I do very heavily on purpose. So I'm on like a site called Lunch Club, where you're just randomly matched up with other entrepreneurs. You have a 45-minute talk. It's just for networking. So I network on purpose. My time spent on LinkedIn is either educational in the content I put out or networking. So in networking and just having a lot of conversations with people, being in entrepreneurial groups like SPI, go to office hours, there's 20 entrepreneurs there. I'm sharing my story from the week. I'm relating to other people, getting to know people that way, and then seeing the incredible work they do in real life and no one knows about it digitally breaks my heart. So there are a lot of times where I'm like, I'm not saying you need video for the sake of video, but you need some vehicle to take your story somewhere else outside of just your everyday conversations, because what you do is incredible. And then to back that up, my current 1 Minute Media members and one-on-one clients, right now, the full roster is all people doing ridiculously incredible things. And video isn't to go viral or to make Facebook ads or whatever. It's to capture how awesome they are and get it out to the world so someone can experience it in a way that doesn't have to be one-on-one or on a Zoom call. They can start to get to know them before they actually meet them in person. So I see people definitely every week. I don't want to say every day because I don't have calls every day, but like definitely every week where I'm like, oh, just let me, like, I got a quick story if it's okay to share.
Yeah, sure.
So someone brought me on because they just wanted to do essentially what was kind of like a free course, just 7 videos. It would live on YouTube. They are a lawyer who are really late in their career and they're wanting to get away from like client work and get more into like education and stuff like that as they kind of quasi retire. And so I knew all we were doing was just making this set of videos, spicing them up, showing him how to capture and distribute. And that was it. Awesome guy. He's in like labor relations law. So a lot of stuff with like automotive and unions and stuff like that. And just in casual conversation, he's like, so what do you do for some of your other clients? I'm like, oh, all kinds of stuff. But I love when education's involved. I love when we're creating modules or a course or some kind of walkthrough or multi-video playlist or something that someone can find, pay for, or get for free and go through and be better at the other end of it. And he's like, wow, that's really cool. I teach at the university level where they bring me in just to do this one class for one semester. And they give me this much money, and students always pack out my classes because they love the fact that I'm not only a lawyer, but a, union lawyer essentially. And they know that's very specific and they want that information. I do have to say though, they pay me this much. And then I know what all 30 of those students paid, and they don't really line up too well. So it'd be cool to record something someday and get it in front of these students and charge what I want for it. That way, every student paying is paying me instead of the university. And I'm like, yeah. Then he told me he's got a 6,500 person email list that is only made of other professors, students who are in this industry, or labor industry representatives and professionals. And I'm like, dude, if all you did was say, I'm thinking about putting together a course hitting on all of the stuff that I think is high level for my career, and then a couple modules on what's new and current and what you need to know now. And you just said, I'm thinking about doing this, who's interested? Watch what comes back, dude. Like I could only imagine. If you have people at individual universities packing your class, imagine if you open it up to the whole United States. And we never went anywhere with it. I wasn't trying to sell him anything. I was just saying, I know what's possible. And we might still do it someday, who knows? But that's one where I'm just looking at it and I'm like, you need videos so bad. If what you're wanting to do is kind of retire, this would be a great way to supplement that income. So that's a story along the lines of seeing someone and just going like, oh, you need video so bad. And it's not even just because it's video, it's because it's such a powerful medium. Next.
All right. So I think this segues neatly into one of my favorite questions ever. I don't know if you're familiar with my spiel about hidden gems, like finding hidden gems. So what I like to ask people is, what are your hidden gems in life? So either, again, it could be any broad, like a person, a concept, a book, anything that you found on like, I am surprised that like millions of people don't know about this. So tell me about your hidden gems in life, and why do you think they're hidden to begin with?
Yeah. This is the first one where I'm like, oh, I got something like right off the bat. So 2020, many of us went through some really crazy stuff. And I call my time the great Band-Aid rip of 2020, because my business shutting down, personal bankruptcy, getting sued by someone, all my tenants quitting paying rent because they knew we couldn't kick them out, all happened in like an 8-day period. So it was like, whew, the Band-Aid was ripped. Right. So I literally went out into the forest with a big whiteboard, a book, and myself to try and find myself, start over, see what was important to me, see what I should get rid of that wasn't working for me or what didn't make me fulfilled. And I got a lot of little personal epiphanies in there. Came out, and I call this a hidden gem because I never thought of it, and it was not plain to me. I came out and I'm like, what do I know? I know storytelling, I know video, and then all the digital that supports it. I'm a designer of 20 years, all this stuff. So I know I can make anything on a screen, help tell that story. So like, okay, what are we going to do here? And the work I was doing fell within that. It was just work that I didn't want to be doing, and it did not fulfill me. So as I'm thinking about that, I'm like having these random thoughts and just writing them on paper for several weeks straight while I'm out in the forest, just like, don't even think about it, write it. And one of them was like, I never give advice unless it's on video or storytelling. I give thought-provoking questions and say, maybe you could think about it like this. Or I say, this is how I do it. And I'm not saying do it my way, but I just want to try and conjure something up. But advice, filmmaking, video, and story, like that's it. And I'm like, I really want to broaden the advice I can give. I want to master something else to now give advice and feel good about it. Then I thought, I don't want to master something new, right? So there's like this little conflict happening. And as I went back through my notes after I left the forest, came home, looking back on my notes, I randomly segmented 28 people off my email list, which was not a huge list. And these are all like people I knew. They knew what I was going through. I knew them pretty well. So colleagues, other entrepreneurs, mentors, mentees, different people I've worked with that I trust to some certain level. And I said, hey, as many of you know, this is what I'm going through. And I just want to let you guys know to keep me in top of mind, because no matter what I end up doing, it's still going to be around story or video. So keep me top of mind. I also don't want to ask without giving. So you guys know my skill set. If you need anything, especially a quick win, I can knock out that I would normally charge for, but I can do for free and quick for you now. Let me know so we can keep that scale balanced. And the response was incredible. People talked about, they were brought to tears because I was just vulnerable and saying, this is where I'm at and I lost everything, but I'm starting over and I want to keep the scales balanced, all the way to Dawn, who's not inexpensive, coached me for free during that kind of starting over phase because she wanted to contribute somehow. And some of that coaching set me on some incredible paths, you know. So the response was incredible. And because it was incredible, I wrote them again. And I said, hey, as I'm developing who I want to work with and being more picky, as I'm reaching out to people saying, hey, I'm starting over, this is what I'm thinking of doing. If a journalist came along and said, you know that Dan Bennett guy, right? And you were like, yeah, I do. And they said, what would you say his superpower is? What would you tell them? And I sent that email out. And out of 30 people, like 22 responded and 12 said the same thing in a different version. And that thing was, I would tell them that your voice, the way you educate, the way you interact with me makes me feel so calm and just safe. And like I can trust you in that, even though this video thing might be scary or putting myself out there might be scary, I can trust you and you're here for me. You got my back. And it was like, I've never thought of that as a superpower of mine in my life. And now 12 people have all said the same thing out of a 30-person group. Like that's pretty powerful. And what that led to has served me so well in the last year and a half, 2 years, that now I share it as a piece of advice. I feel comfortable enough saying it that I can trust in it, that it's going to work for other people too. And it's super simple. Talk about what you're trying to do. Share with the world what you're trying to do. It could be an idea. It could be, I'm trying to get more digital leads in my business, but I don't want to be slimy about it. Talk about what you're trying to do. Humans in general want to help, and entrepreneurs especially so. So as I've shared what I'm trying to do, what I'm trying to launch, I would love to build a community. I don't know where to start. Whatever the case was on the timeline, help shows up, doors open, introductions are made, and I never ask for any of it. I just talk about what I'm doing. So for me, this has unlocked so much, and it was this hidden gem. It was in front of me my whole life, and I never took advantage of it until now. Now, I always talk about what I'm up to, what I'm trying to do, that I'm open for help, and that I give help in return very freely. And some incredible things have happened. So that's my gem. What's next?
So two follow-up questions on that. Why are they hidden to begin with? So why did it take you so long to see this, that you can just simply ask people, tell people, you know, what am I trying to do? And number two, why didn't you see that in yourself, that you make people calmer?
Just writing this down because I want to tackle them well. So why hidden is something that I kind of projected onto society as a whole and then accepted for myself after doing so. So when I thought, because I've had these exact thoughts, why is this hidden? Why did I never do this? Why was this like right in plain sight? And I never did anything about it. I thought, well, why don't people share what they're doing? Oh, they don't want to say, hey, I'm thinking about launching a podcast and I want to do it the right way, da, 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 da. And then they never launch it. And they think that everyone they told is like, what a loser. They never even did it. How dare they? Or I'm launching this thing. This is what I'm trying to do. And then you launch it and the literal thing fails. So you got to the point of making it or doing it, but it fails. And all of that comes back to building in public or failing in public, being ridiculed. And I know this is not the case for everyone. There's trolls all over the internet. But to this day, I've put out hundreds of pieces of video content. I've given hundreds of interviews. I've done hundreds of interviews. I've never had anyone be like awful to me. There's been bumps along the way, and people are people, and you know, different characteristics come into play, but I've never had anyone just be awful to me. And
Right.
now that I've done it for years, I'm like, okay, so I was thinking about myself. It was hidden because I was afraid of those things happening, not society, even though a lot of us are. It was me. And I'm like, if I was never looking to share what I was doing because of ridicule or being put down or being told I can't do it, or you tried to do it and you failed, haha, it kept me from just sharing thoughts. And I share thoughts like, I think it'd be cool one day to do X, Y, or Z. It's not even something in my pipeline. And I'm like, why wouldn't I share that? It's just an idea. I'm just sharing ideas. Why would I keep that to myself? All the way to, I put a lot of time into this and launched it, and then it fails or succeeds. And what would I think, you know, someone's opinion of that might be? So I think it's hidden because we're scared. We're scared of being vulnerable. We're scared of what other people think, but that really just translates into we're scared of what we think of ourselves. And mindset's a huge part of entrepreneurship, and mental health is too. So I think that's why. The next part, why didn't I see myself as bringing calmness or trust and just comfort, is because I wasn't paying close enough attention. After that data set, for lack of a better term, came in, I started reflecting on my life and my career. And I remembered all these times where I sat with CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. I sat with local pastors giving out food and water in Flint, Michigan after the water crisis began. I sat with solopreneurs. I sat with people who had a 9-to-5 job and were trusting me to help them tell their story as they went into entrepreneurship. And in many different forms, but very similarly, had them say, just quit talking, Dan, you're hired. Like, I'm looking in your eyes. I trust you. I know you're going to do what you say. Like, I don't know why, but I'm seeing it. Let's just move forward. And I always thought that was weird. I relate it to like going out on a date and having someone say, hey, you want to come back to my place? And thinking like, yeah, that'd be great to share more time together, get to know each other more in the comfort of your house. Also, I don't know if you should like invite people back to your house when you first met them, you know? So I loved that they trusted me and they could feel that. But I also was kind of like, I don't know if that's the best idea. I know I can trust me, but it's a little weird that you can trust me on day one.
Right.
And I've had that happen in so many like business encounters right in front of my face, but I never really looked close enough to realize what was happening as I was bringing comfort and trust to people. So I just never saw it as a superpower. I always saw my skill set as a superpower, which is why nowadays those soft skills are what I consider to be what serves me really well. Next.
Can I offer you a hypothesis, another hypothesis?
Yeah.
I was thinking, and a metaphor. We like metaphors. Uh, I think a lot about this question. Why do people not see their own superpowers? And I think part of the answer is that because we're used to ourselves. This is the natural way we do things. So if you, the question is, if you're wearing blue glasses, what's the word? What's the color of the word that you see?
I don't know. Like, not trying to break this, but like gray, like light gray.
Okay, let me rephrase this. Let's assume you were just born and on your eyes there were like not. Let's go with the first finished one. Okay. The answer is, when I think of it, is you see the world normal. You wouldn't describe the world as blue. You just see okay. Sorry, I asked the question in the wrong way. Let's reverse. So the question was, if you were from the first day you were born, you had glasses on, and they were like, or blue glasses. You wouldn't describe the world as blue. You would describe it as normal, because this is the only thing you're used to. So you don't see your superpowers because this is the lens you see the world through.
Gotcha. Yeah.
You need the people around you. And another metaphor that I like is that if you stink, people around you are more likely to smell it than you yourself, because we're used to the smell of our own bodies. So yeah, that's partly, I think, what's going on.
Yeah, that's huge. That makes me think of something that relates directly from my world to what you're saying. And it's that I'll ask you just for fun. When it comes to apprehension of being on video, what do you think the number one concern is for people when they're thinking about making videos of themselves?
The number one is that they're not speaking eloquently.
That's a top 5. So excellent, excellent guess. They hate their voice.
Okay.
It's not even their face.
Right.
It's their voice in particular, which is funny because video is a visual medium and they hate their voice. Then what science proves, plus I've found through my own dealings with clients, is once they make enough content and they hear themselves enough and it sounds normal to them because they've done it 20 times, 50 times, they don't care anymore.
Oh,
so that ties right into being used to yourself. People don't hear their voice back. They see themselves in a mirror every day. Not everyone, but most people. So when they see themselves flipped on camera, it's like looking at the mirror. That's what I look like. Some people don't like their wrinkles or whatever, but like most people are like, but they don't hear themselves every day. So when they hear themselves back on a video, they're like, oh God, that's what I sound like. And then after 50 videos, they're like, that. You remember in the beginning when I was so worried about that? I get all the time now, especially the last year, people love my voice. Now I use like good equipment. So it's always nice to hear someone's voice in a nice microphone because you can hear the resonance and all the stuff you'd hear in real life if you're sitting next to them. But people like my voice. I get playfully teased about it all the time. Like, you should just read things and record it or whatever, I don't think I have an incredible voice, but I do like my voice because I've spent the last 6 years making content and it's helpful content. And now I hear myself so much that it's like, yeah, that's my voice, that it does not sound weird to me. So if I leave a voicemail for someone and they play it back to me and I hear my own voice, I'm not like, that's what I sound like. I'm like focused on the voicemail, right? So It is interesting getting used to yourself, how powerful that can be one way or another. Yeah. Anyway.
Right. Okay, so let's talk about something you said about, you getting, I don't know what to call it. I know the word in Arabic. Okay, let me explain the concept first. So I'm gonna say empathy, or this idea of knowing what the other person is feeling or thinking of. Do you think that this is actually something that people can develop?
Ooh. Nurture and nature can collide. Yes. I'm just going to be brave and say yes. Yes. Can I teach someone who's neurodivergent to excel to the level of empathy I have? No. Can skills be learned to pick up on cues, even though picking up on cues is not in your natural skill set? Yes. My partner, Jax, her daughter is on the spectrum, and I watched these things happen over the last 5 years. So I'm not saying I'm a scientist. I've just seen them happen in real life, and things can be picked up on, even if it's not naturally occurring, because I'm an empath through and through. So I do believe if you have no empathy, you can at least learn to have some. Or if empathy scares you because you're really empathetic and it messes with your life, it can be kind of corralled and harnessed if you're thinking about it and you're self-aware. So in those kind of forums, I do think it can be taught. And then, of course, we can just, move psychosis or whatever off to the side, because if someone doesn't have control of what's happening in their brain, then that doesn't come into play. But yeah, I think to some level you can. That's like a real safe answer for being brave and saying, yes, I think you can. But it's different for everyone, of course, but I really do think you can. And I think the fact that you or I could have someone go, you're an introvert, is proof of that, because we can kind of like empathize with their world and their standing and present in a way that makes their journey comfortable, especially if they're a client, and then have them be kind of surprised by how we really are, even though we were being ourselves the whole time. It's from those skill sets that I think can kind of be learned and nurtured over time. Here's my hot take.
Right. What do you think are some of the things that are either impossible to teach or extremely hard to teach?
Ooh, I think these same things. I think someone could hear what I just said and say, you can't teach empathy. And they would have a valid argument, and I would hear it and go, whew, I've never thought about it that way. I also think, because I think it can be taught, that it's very difficult. And I'll give you an example. So out in the forest, finding myself, micro epiphanies happening. Something hit my brain for the first time. And it's one of those things that exists. It was kind of a duh moment. But for me, it was the beginning of a new universe. Here it is. And it was that I was looking at some people who are like, oh, I can never start my own company. I got 2 kids and I have to keep insurance and medical insurance from my job. I could never be brave and go do that. Like, you don't understand, and you don't have kids, whatever, you know. And I would get upset sometimes, like, oh, I know people with 7 kids who started $1 million companies. That's not a great excuse. And kind of chalk it up to that and move on. Now, I never said this to these people. I care about these people. But inside, I would feel like, man, I hate excuses, especially when it's one I don't personally have. So I can't even say, I got over that, so should you. All internal, but still affecting me as an entrepreneur. I would have these thoughts. I didn't make anyone feel bad or shame them. But inside, I was like, come on, just do it. You could do it. You're so talented. You could do it. Have this micro epiphany of what to me is like 10% of my capacity, pushes me to 10% of my anxiety threshold, my brain power, energy, whatever it may be. To someone else, that exact same thing could be 90% of their threshold of their anxiety. And as soon as that clicked for me, I was like, oh my God, if someone is overreacting to something I think is small, I have to stop and remember that could be huge to them. This is not new, right? This is the way we all should probably be behaving all the time. But for me, it was this just powerful epiphany. And that's the part that makes me think it could be hard to teach empathy, because no one taught me that. I was aware of that concept my whole life in some form, but it took this like boom in my head to go, I need to approach these situations differently from here on out. And I have ever since. I say to myself, or anyone who knows me, like my partner, their 90 could be my 10. Their 90 could be my 10. It's just like a mantra to me now. And so no one could have taught me that, because the world taught me that you should really take someone's consideration or situation into consideration. You never know what they're going through. There's a great American term. You never know what someone's going through. I've heard that my whole life. No one could have taught me that any better than they did. It took that like clicking into place for it to be powerful to me. So that's why I think empathy could be that thing that's like possibly impossible or really difficult to teach. The other is the opposite skill set. So soft skills to hard skill people, hard skills to soft skill people. I'm super fortunate. I'm thankful for it. I give gratitude almost every day for the fact that I have an engineering background. I have logic and process built into some of my education and teaching, but I'm a creative and empathetic person. Now, I often talk, I have a coach that helps me with organization and flow, and she only works with creative people. I often talk about the fact that these 2 brains, I know it's not actually left and right brain, but I like the thought of each side doing something. I have these 2 brains, analytical, logical, process-driven, creative, empathetic. The world is a mystery side. They don't mesh. They don't play together. I've just gotten really good at switching in between them over the years. So I can go from like a sales call and strategy and all these things that are kind of business oriented, take 20 minutes, grab a snack, sip on some coffee, shift over into creative, and then go and start editing a video for a client. So they don't play together, but they play nicely next to each other, and I can switch in between them. So I think whatever the opposite is, not everyone has both those. They generally err heavily in one or the other, and teaching soft skills to hard skill people and vice versa is difficult.
Right.
Next.
Okay, so this will be, I'm going to ask this the last question before I'm going to let you give you the chance to ask me a question if you have. What, aside from this show, what was the most powerful question that you got?
In my life?
Yeah.
I think the thing that generated this dig one layer deeper thing I have in my business in my head now was my brother, who's younger than me, who I was very influential on raising, broken family, single mom, no dad around. So I had that kind of like older brother, father figure-ish type thing with him. And when trying to instill all the life lessons I could, even though I was only 4 years older. I remember the first time he looked at me as like a 13, 14-year-old and said, well, why does that matter? And he was sincere about it. And it was the first time I ever thought of, well, why does that matter? You know, and we were talking about something trivial, getting to bed early so you can get up early so you're never late to your job. Like it was simplistic stuff, but it was like, you know, why does that matter? And I'm like, that's a really good question. And it made me think, well, if you're late, especially consistently late, people don't trust you. They can't rely on you. And when it's a job, you have a schedule. So you're saying, screw that schedule. I'm going to come whenever I want. And you might not be fired for it, but people won't like to schedule you or be around you because they're like, God damn, always late. He's not pulling his weight, whatever. And then that doesn't reflect how I am as a real person in everyday life outside of the job. So now my coworkers are going to have this skewed version of me that I don't want them to have. Because in real life, if we're having coffee, I'm on time. If I say I'll help you move, I show up with boots on and I help you move your furniture. And then another layer deeper is, well, if I'm showing up that way here, where else am I showing up in a way that leaves them with a taste in their mouth that's not accurate? And it all just came from him like, well, why does that matter? So he forced me to go one layer deeper. So it's a question that sticks out in my head because we're very close, me and him and I. And I just have that memory. So I think about it quite often. Yeah, I think that's probably one of the biggest ones. And next.
So yeah, that's it's your time to ask me. We'll wrap up with the question that you have for me.
Cool. So I'm going to cheat. I've asked this hundreds and hundreds of times.
Sure.
I wrap up all my interviews with it. And
Sure.
It's one of my favorites. And it's, what do you wish? This can be life, business, every day, doesn't matter. What do you wish people would ask you?
That's actually one of my questions, but it's funny that the questions that I haven't answered all of the, I don't have a response to all of the questions.
Yeah, right.
Back. I'm going to say one of the questions that I would like people to ask me is, what are you trying to do? I'm going to flip that on you. And if they are, the kind of the hope is that if I start telling them about what I am trying to do and what I want, they can provide, or we can brainstorm together, or they can help, or we can just kick it off from there.
So, yeah, I love that. I love that. Not everyone's different. Not everyone, but a lot of people. I've got one umbrella that the answer to this question generally falls under, and it's, I am more than this. So whatever someone wishes people would ask them generally opens up. I am more than what you just saw. I'm more than this interview. I'm more than who you think you know from childhood as a friend. I'm more than tell you how I am more than this. I got a quick story if it's okay to share.
Sure, love it.
All right. So I interviewed a lot of bands, did a lot of filming and interviewing and stuff in the music space long time ago. And I would get these incredible opportunities to meet some of my heroes, like these hard rock bands that were on the radio and toured and I looked up to and were an influence and all this stuff. And they loved this question because they would go to 30 radio stations during, 2 months of touring, get the same 10 questions every day. How'd you guys find each other? What's the latest single? Blah, blah, blah. and they would just be in this monotonous, like, okay, go do the radio interview, go to the bus, eat, go do sound check, do the show. And their favorite part was always like meeting fans, because that's the part that changed every time. Different people, different questions, different whatever. So they loved this question. And I was interviewing this band, and it was kind of a super group. There was members of other bands that were already very successful that got together to do this project. And the guitarist is someone I looked up to, loved the band that he was in separate from this, loved this band. It was a really fun interview for me, because I'm like, I love these guys and they're good people. And that's not always the case. And I got to this question, and he's like, dude, no one ever asks what the hell we want or what we care about. This is so cool. He's like, I actually have a very small acoustic guitar company. We handcraft every one of our guitars. I'm not trying to go into the guitar industry, but we do make guitars to order. And I'm so passionate about it because I get to work with every one of these people. Oftentimes they're aware of me, so they're working with a guitarist they know has some success behind them. And we're crafting these acoustic guitars for them. We're handing them off. I get to see their face when they get it, or they email and say, it's everything I hoped for. And I'm really passionate about it. Thanks for giving me space to talk about that, because no one asks about what we're doing or what we care about. And it was just so fun to see, like, he was a nice guy. There was energy in the interview. Answer, question, answer. And then all of a sudden I asked that, and he was like, whoa, just lit up. And I'm like, yeah, we just got some gold. So that's why I like this, because I'm more than this, you know, and people wish people sometimes would ask them,
Yeah.
what else? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you said, you want me to answer it? You're flipping it.
Go ahead.
Just so you know, I don't have a canned answer. No one ever asked me this, even though I ask them this every time. So I haven't answered it really either. And I'm thinking about, what do I wish people would ask me? I kind of lean towards like, what's this for, right? No matter what. So if I'm working with a client and they're like, all right, you told me storytelling is important, making video can help me get my story where it's going, I'm going to have a bigger, what's this for? Why? You know, what are we doing with this? Or I tell someone, like, you know, you should try this coffee. I cold brew with it, whatever. All right, well, what's that information for? What are you telling me? Why does this matter? So I kind of wish that people would ask me just that one layer deeper type of question every time. Not to question what I'm saying always, but to like almost kind of prove they want to know more, you know, which is not their burden to bear. But
it's interesting that it's the same question that your brother asked you. Why does it matter?
Ah, that is interesting. I have never thought of that. Of course, I've never been asked this question directly, but like, yeah, I never thought of that. Because
what's it for? Okay. Is it, why does it matter?
Yeah,
why does it matter?
Why does it? Why? Yeah. And it's, if you say why, you know, there's the whole like ask why 5 times, you get to the core or something or whatever, but it's more about like the thing, what's happening. I would, you know, I reach out to someone I'd love to have on my show, on my podcast. And they're like, yeah, that'd be awesome. They fill out the form, they're on the show. We have a great show. It's cool. It would be cool once in a while if someone said, why do you want me on your show? And I could be like, oh, well, actually, because of your viewpoint on this and how you've used video in your own business, and we haven't worked together, so people can trust that you had your own journey. That's why I want you to show. Like, I would love if, not every time, because it could get daunting, but if people just, yeah, what's this for? Why? Why does it matter? Yeah.
Right. Okay. I think we'll wrap it up here. Thank you very, very much, Dan. It was a pleasure talking to you. Yeah, and I'll stop recording now, and we can recording.